When I saw her standing at the altar in my dress, the one I'd chosen months before, the one I'd paid for, I thought I was dreaming. My hands trembled, my throat tightened, and all I could hear was the soft hum of wedding music drowning under the pulse in my ears. Everyone was smiling, clapping, taking pictures, and there she was, my sister-in-law beaming under the soft glow of the chandeliers, sliding into the role that was supposed to be mine. That was the moment something inside me broke. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before all of this, before the betrayal, before the humiliation, I loved my family in the simplest way I knew how. My younger brother Daniel had always been the soft spot in my heart. He was 5 years younger, a gentle soul who looked up to me like I could fix anything. When our father passed, I promised Mom I'd look after him. And I did. I helped him through school, through heartbreak, through the confusion of early adulthood. When Daniel met Leah, the woman who would become my sister-in-law, I remember being happy for him. She was polite, a bit quiet, but she had this way of making everyone in the room look at her. She had presence, the kind that demanded admiration. I wanted to like her, and I did, at first. They got engaged 2 years later, and Daniel asked me to be his maid of honor. "I couldn't do this without you, sis," he said, his voice soft over the phone. I remember smiling so hard my cheeks hurt. I told everyone at work, everyone at church. I was proud that he wanted me beside him on the most important day of his life. Planning the wedding became my second job. I spent nights scrolling through Pinterest boards, comparing shades of blush and ivory, sketching seating charts with Mom at the kitchen table. I helped Leah choose florists and photographers. Sometimes, when she got overwhelmed, she'd call me late at night and vent about Daniel's indecision. "You're like the calm one in the family," she said once, laughing. "You should have been the bride." I laughed too. I didn't know it would be a joke that came true, in the worst possible way. Our family home buzzed with preparations. Mom was beside herself with excitement, her first child getting married. Every conversation somehow circled back to the wedding. I soaked it up. It felt good to be useful, to be needed. Leah and I grew close, or so I thought. We went dress shopping together, and I remember how she held up that champagne-colored gown, her eyes glinting in the mirror. "You think this is too much?" she asked. "Not at all," I said, adjusting the strap for her. "It's your day. You deserve to shine." She smiled, and for a fleeting moment, I thought she looked almost guilty. I brushed it off. Weddings are emotional. Everyone gets sentimental. When the time came to choose my dress, Leah insisted I wear something elegant but understated. "You'll be standing beside me," she said, "but you shouldn't overshadow me." I laughed, not realizing how those words would echo later. Then slowly, things began to change. It started small. Group chats I was once part of went silent for me. Leah and Daniel held planning meetings I wasn't invited to. "Oh, it was just quick stuff," Leah said once when I asked. "You're so busy, we didn't want to bother you." Busy? I worked from home and cleared my schedule months ago for this. One afternoon, Mom mentioned that Leah's sister, Amanda, had been helping out a lot lately. "She's such a sweet girl," Mom said, stirring sugar into her tea. "They even went cake tasting together yesterday." I frowned. "Cake tasting? That was supposed to be next week, with me." Mom looked confused. "Oh, maybe plans changed." "Maybe." But nobody told me. From then on, I noticed a pattern. Small omissions, half-truths. When I asked Leah for updates, her responses grew shorter. "Don't worry about it," she'd say. "I've got it handled." One day, she forgot to send me the updated schedule for the rehearsal dinner. I found out about it after seeing pictures on Instagram. Daniel, Mom, the bridal party. All smiling, glasses raised. No one called me. No one noticed I wasn't there. I tried not to take it personally. I told myself weddings were chaotic, that emotions ran high. Still, something gnawed at me. I couldn't shake the feeling of being slowly erased, like a photograph fading under sunlight. The night before the wedding, I texted Daniel to confirm my role and arrival time. He didn't reply. Hours passed. Finally, near midnight, I received a message from Leah. Hey, love. Don't stress tomorrow, okay? Everything's under control. Can't wait to see you there. Under control. Those words should have comforted me. Instead, they made my stomach twist. The morning of the wedding was bright and warm. I woke up early, curled my hair, slipped into the pale blue dress Leah had approved weeks ago, and pinned on the small silver brooch Dad had given me before he passed. It was my good luck charm. I drove to the venue, an old countryside estate wrapped in climbing ivy, humming softly to calm my nerves. Guests were already arriving, dressed in soft tones and pastel fabrics. I smiled and waved to familiar faces. Everyone looked so happy. I asked one of the ushers where I should go to meet the bridal party. He hesitated, glancing at my dress, then looked away quickly. I think they're inside already, he said. When I stepped into the dressing suite, the air smelled of roses and hairspray. Laughter echoed down the hallway, and there she was, Amanda, Leah's sister, standing in my place, wearing a blush-colored gown, bouquet in hand, hair styled exactly like mine had been during the fitting weeks earlier. She turned when she saw me. Her face froze. Leah, standing beside her in her wedding gown, went pale. Oh, Leah said, her voice too bright. You made it. I blinked. Of course I did. Why, what's going on? The room went silent. Leah stepped forward, smoothing her dress nervously. Listen, there were some last-minute changes. Amanda's standing in for you today. It just made more sense logistically. Standing in for me? I repeated, my voice trembling. I'm your maid of honor, Leah. Her eyes darted to the bridesmaids behind her. It's not personal, okay? We just thought it might be better this way. Less pressure for you. Less pressure. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. I looked around, at the women avoiding my eyes, at Amanda clutching the bouquet that should have been mine. And I realized no one had told me because no one cared enough to. I forced myself to stay calm. So you replaced me, I said quietly. Leah sighed, glancing at her makeup artist. Can we talk about this later, please? I really don't want drama today. Drama. I nodded slowly, biting back the sting in my throat. No, I said. You wouldn't want that. I turned, walked out of the room, and closed the door gently behind me. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold my purse. In the hallway, laughter erupted again, muffled, distant. I took a deep breath, looked at my reflection in the hallway mirror, and for the first time, I didn't recognize the woman staring back.
Part 2 of the script. 1,000 words. I didn't cry right away. I thought I would. Thought I'd fall apart right there in the hallway. But instead, I went completely still. It's funny, the way pain sometimes turns into silence. My body felt weightless, my mind heavy. I could hear the chatter and laughter through the closed door. The rustle of silk, the soft clinking of champagne glasses. And I realized, with a strange calm, that I was an outsider in a room I helped build. I wandered toward the courtyard, needing air, outside. Guests gathered beneath white canopies, the smell of hydrangeas and freshly cut grass filling the air. The sun glowed on the stone path, too bright, almost cruel. Mom was there, talking to a family friend. Her eyes lit up when she saw me. Oh, sweetheart, she said. You look beautiful. Why aren't you with the others? I swallowed hard. Mom, I said carefully, did you know Amanda's standing in as maid of honor? Her smile faltered. She blinked confused. Amanda, no, that can't be right. It's right, I said softly. For a moment she didn't speak. Then she sighed, the kind of sigh that carries years of exhaustion. Leah mentioned something about changes last night, but I didn't think she meant that. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding, darling. I looked at her, really looked. The way her eyes darted away, the way her hands fidgeted with her clutch. She knew, maybe not the full truth, but enough, that realization hurt more than Leah's betrayal. Because when your family lets you walk into humiliation, that's a kind of silence you never forget. I stayed for the ceremony. Maybe I shouldn't have, but I wanted to see it through. I sat quietly in the second row, my bouquet clutched too tight in my hands. People smiled at me, oblivious. The music began, the doors opened, and Leah appeared, radiant and poised, walking down the aisle toward my brother. And there, beside her, in the place meant for me, stood Amanda, holding the bouquet I helped choose, smiling the smile I practiced in the mirror weeks before. I felt hollow. Daniel looked so happy, his face full of that pure, unfiltered love. For a moment, I wanted to hate him, but he didn't know. He couldn't. I saw it in his eyes, the way they softened when he looked at Leah. When they said their vows, I watched my brother promise forever to someone who had just erased me from his life. And still, I stayed. I clapped when everyone clapped. I smiled when the cameras turned my way. I even hugged Leah afterward. A brief, mechanical embrace. Congratulations, I whispered in her ear. You got everything you wanted. She froze. I didn't mean, but I was already walking away. That night, after the reception, I sat in my car in the dark parking lot, hands gripping the steering wheel, music still faintly drifting from the ballroom behind me. My phone buzzed. Messages from friends asking why I wasn't in the photos, why Amanda was in my spot. I turned off my phone. There was no answer that would make sense. When I finally drove home, the silence in the car was deafening. Every mile between me and that wedding felt like a piece of my heart unspooling. I pulled into my driveway, left the car running, and just sat there. Headlights illuminating the front porch. Inside, the house felt too neat, too untouched. My dress shimmered in the hallway light as I hung it over a chair. I took off my shoes, my jewelry, the silver brooch Dad gave me. That brooch, his last gift. I held it in my hand, feeling the cool metal against my skin, and whispered, "You'd have hated to see this, Dad." Then finally I cried. The kind of cry that comes from somewhere deep. Not loud, but shaking, broken. The next morning, my brother called. "Hey, sis." His voice was bright, like nothing was wrong. "You disappeared last night. We missed you." I took a breath. "Did you?" He laughed softly. "Of course we did. Leah said you weren't feeling well." "Are you okay?" I closed my eyes. "Daniel, did you know Amanda was replacing me?" There was a pause. Long and heavy, then quietly. "I found out the morning of. Leah said you agreed to step down. I thought it was strange, but she said you didn't want the pressure." My chest tightened. "And you believed that?" He hesitated. "She showed me a text from your number, saying you wanted Amanda to take your place." For a moment, I couldn't speak. My breath caught in my throat. "What text?" "I don't know," he said quickly. "I figured maybe you changed your mind." I was so stressed that morning, I didn't question it. I felt my heart sink. She'd faked it. Leah had faked a message from me to push me out quietly, neatly, without confrontation. "Daniel," I said, voice trembling, "I never sent that message." There was silence. Then, barely a whisper, "Oh my God." He apologized. Again and again. But the damage was done. "I'll talk to her," he said, his voice breaking. "I swear I'll fix this." I wanted to believe him, but I also knew how love blinds people, how loyalty can twist into something unrecognizable. "Don't," I said quietly. "This isn't something you can fix for me." That week, the family group chat lit up with photos of the wedding. Everyone gushed about how beautiful Leah looked, how touching the ceremony was. No one mentioned the switch. No one asked where I'd been in the bridal lineup. It was like the world had agreed to pretend it never happened. Mom called once, awkward and hesitant. "Your brother's heartbroken, you know," she said. "He didn't mean to hurt you." "I know," I replied. But knowing doesn't make it hurt less, she sighed. Families go through things, sweetheart. Don't let this tear you apart. I wanted to say it already had. Days turned into weeks. I threw myself into work, into cleaning, into anything that would keep me from thinking. But silence has a way of growing louder when you try to escape it. One night, I sat on the couch scrolling through my phone. Leah had posted a wedding recap. Smiling faces, slow dances, perfectly framed moments. The caption read, "The most magical day of my life. Surrounded by everyone I love. Everyone except me." That word burned. I clicked on the comments, full of congratulations and heart emojis, until I saw one that made my pulse quicken. "Your sister Amanda looks stunning as maid of honor. What a beautiful family." Leah replied with a single heart emoji. No correction, no mention of me, just silence. That was when something in me shifted. The heartbreak started turning into clarity, and then, slowly, into resolve. If she wanted to erase me from her story, I was going to make sure the truth found its voice. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Leah's smile at the altar. Serene, victorious. As if she'd already won a battle I hadn't known I was fighting. By dawn, my pillow was damp and my chest felt hollow. But underneath the ache was something new. A quiet, sharp focus. I wasn't looking for revenge. I wasn't even sure I wanted an apology. What I needed was truth. Not for her, not for Daniel, but for me. I brewed a pot of coffee and sat at the kitchen table, scrolling back through old messages. Leah and I had exchanged hundreds over the past year. Flower arrangements, budget spreadsheets, notes about the seating chart. I went through them one by one, my eyes scanning every timestamp, every emoji, until I reached the week before the wedding. That's where I found it, a strange gap. On Thursday, our conversation ended abruptly with my last message. "Let me know when we can finalize the schedule." After that, silence. The next recorded message, the one Daniel said Leah had shown him, wasn't on my phone, which meant she deleted it from her own thread before I could see it. But not before taking a screenshot. She had forged my words. I felt my pulse in my ears. That was more than betrayal. It was manipulation. And she'd used my love for Daniel to make sure I wouldn't question her. I poured another cup of coffee and stared out the window, the morning light turning golden across the fence. That was when I decided, no confrontation, no screaming, just truth, revealed in daylight. The next weekend, Daniel invited me over for dinner. He sounded nervous on the phone. "Leah really wants to talk," he said. "She feels terrible." Terrible, I thought. About what? Getting caught. Still, I went. Because some wounds need to be seen before they can heal. Their house was exactly what you'd expect from newlyweds. Spotless, curated, full of smiling pictures. Leah greeted me at the door with that same practiced brightness, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "Hey," she said softly. "I'm so glad you came." I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. Of course, dinner was awkward, filled with small talk about their honeymoon, Danielle's work, the weather, anything but the truth, sitting between us like an uninvited guest. When we finished eating, I placed my phone on the table and opened the folder I'd prepared. Screenshots, emails, dates, all the proof of her omissions. From the deleted group messages to the fake text, "Leah," I said quietly, "I want you to look at these." Her face paled. "What is this?" "The messages you deleted, the ones you forged in my name." Daniel froze. "Forged?" She swallowed hard, her eyes flicking toward him, then back at me. I didn't forge anything. Maybe it was a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding." My voice was calm, steady. "You replaced me at my own brother's wedding, and you told everyone I agreed to it." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Leah, please tell me that's not true." Her composure cracked. I thought it would be easier. You were so involved, and Mom said you were stressing yourself out. I didn't want more drama before the wedding. Easier for who? I asked. She looked down. For everyone. I stared at her. This woman I'd once comforted, shopped with, confided in. You didn't want drama, I said. So you created a lie big enough to rewrite the truth. Daniel finally stood, voice trembling. I need some air. He walked outside, leaving us at the table. Leah started to cry. Soft, shaking sobs. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. I didn't want to share the spotlight. Everyone kept talking about how close you and Daniel were. I wanted to feel like it was my day, not yours. Her honesty, though bitter, hit me unexpectedly. It wasn't malice. It was insecurity. That didn't make it right, but it made sense. I would have shared that spotlight with you, I said quietly. You didn't need to take it away from me. She wiped her eyes, mascara smudging. I know that now. I stood, picking up my phone. No, Leah, you knew it then too. I walked out before she could respond. Outside, Daniel was sitting on the porch steps, staring at the garden. The sky had turned dusky, streaked with orange and blue. He looked up when I approached. She admitted it. I said softly. He nodded, jaw clenched. I don't know what to say. I can't undo what she did. No, I said. You can't. We sat in silence for a long moment. The wind rustled through the trees, the faint hum of crickets filling the quiet. Finally he said, I'm sorry, sis, for believing her, for not asking you. I placed a hand on his shoulder. You are in love, Daniel. People see what they want to see. He gave a small broken laugh. Still, I should have known better. We didn't talk much after that. I left him there, under the dim porch light, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. As I drove home, I realized something. The closure I thought I wanted didn't come from confrontation. It came from clarity, from finally knowing that what I felt wasn't crazy, or dramatic, or petty. It was real. The truth spread slowly through the family after that night. Daniel, to his credit, didn't hide it. When Mom called me the next day, she sounded weary. Leah told me everything, she said quietly. I'm ashamed, sweetheart. I should have seen what was happening. I didn't know what to say, so I just said, It's over, Mom. Let's not dwell on it. But Mom being Mom, she did. Guilt turned her soft voice into something fragile. She came by this morning, crying, said she wants to apologize in person. I sighed. Not now. Then when? When I can look at her without remembering that moment at the altar. Mom was silent. Then, almost in a whisper, she said, You always were the stronger one. Weeks passed. Life resumed its quiet rhythm. I went back to work, took long walks in the evening, started cooking again. One afternoon, as I was watering the small rose bush in my yard, I received a letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. Neat, looping, careful. It was from Leah. Inside she wrote, I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that your dignity that day, the way you walked away without shouting, without revenge, taught me something I should have learned years ago. I'm sorry. I read it twice. Then I folded it neatly and placed it in my desk drawer beside Dad's brooch. Not because I forgave her, but because I wanted to remember that silence, that moment when I chose grace over bitterness. That night, I stood by the window, looking at the faint moonlight spilling over the street. It struck me then, betrayal doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers in the quiet moments when people think you won't notice. But I did, and I walked away with my peace intact. The weeks that followed brought a strange kind of quiet. Not peace exactly, just stillness. At first, family gatherings were awkward. Mom would call to invite me to Sunday lunch, her voice hopeful but cautious. I always asked the same question. Will Leah be there? Sometimes she was, sometimes she wasn't. On the days she came, I didn't. It wasn't anger that kept me away anymore. It was self-preservation. I needed space from the tension that filled every room her name entered. But secrets have short lives in families like ours. It started with a cousin's birthday dinner, one I didn't attend. A relative asked, why wasn't she the maid of honor again? Daniel froze. Mom tried to change the subject. But you can't bury truth forever. Someone always digs it up. Within a week, people started talking. Whispering first. The way family whispers, when they love the gossip more than they love the truth. Then the whispers turned to messages. Then messages to calls. She did what? You're kidding. No wonder she looked nervous that day. It spread like wildfire, not because I wanted it to. I hadn't said a word, but because truth, when ignored too long, starts demanding attention. The first time Leah reached out again, it was through Daniel. He came to my house one evening, standing on the porch with that same uncertain expression he used to wear as a child when he'd broken Mom's favorite vase. She wants to apologize in person, he said quietly. She knows she can't undo it, but she wants to face you. I hesitated. Every part of me wanted to stay silent. But I also knew avoidance could turn into bitterness, and bitterness has a way of changing a person, making them smaller, colder. Fine, I said. Tell her she can come tomorrow evening. No cameras, no makeup, no rehearsed speeches. Leah arrived the next day, wearing a simple grey sweater, her hair tied back. She looked smaller somehow, like the confidence she once carried had been replaced with shame. I let her in. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd planned her wedding months before. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The clock ticked softly in the corner. The smell of mint tea filled the room. Finally, she said, I didn't realize how cruel it was until afterward. I kept telling myself I was protecting the day from conflict. But really, I was protecting my pride. I listened silently. I saw the way people admired you, she continued. You were so composed, so loved. I felt like I couldn't measure up. Like you'd always be the one Daniel turned to. Her honesty was raw, unexpected. You could have just told me that, I said softly. We could have figured it out together, she nodded, eyes glistening. I know, but insecurity makes you do ugly things. And now, everyone knows. I can't walk into family events without feeling eyes on me. That's not my doing, I said. I never told anyone. I know. She gave a faint, broken laugh. That's the worst part. You didn't have to. The truth told itself. For a long time, we sat in silence. Then I said, Leah, I don't hate you, but I can't pretend this didn't happen. I'll always carry that memory. The way I stood outside that room, hearing laughter that used to include me. Tears slid down her cheeks. I deserve that. No, I said gently. You deserve to grow from it. That's different. After she left, I sat by the window watching her car disappear down the street. The sunset cast long orange streaks across the pavement, and for the first time in months, I felt something loosen inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, but release. I realized that I wasn't angry anymore, just free. The public consequence didn't stop at family whispers. It reached into Leah's circle too. A few weeks later, she posted a message on social media. Long, unfiltered, raw. I owe an apology to someone who didn't deserve what I did. Insecurity is no excuse for cruelty. I lost a sister-in-law, a friend, and my own self-respect because I wanted to be admired more than I wanted to be kind. People flooded the comments, some supportive, some judgmental. It was a mess, but it was hers to handle. Daniel called me the next day. She wanted to take accountability, he said softly. She didn't want you to think she was hiding behind me anymore. I don't, I said, and I meant it. He hesitated. Do you think, someday, things could go back to normal? I smiled sadly. Normal doesn't exist anymore, Daniel, but something new can. He nodded, tears glinting in his eyes. I just want my family together again. I reached out and squeezed his hand. Then start with honesty. That's where families begin. Or begin again. Months passed. Slowly, the family began to mend. At Christmas, I agreed to attend dinner at Mom's house. It was the first time we were all in one room again. The air was tense at first, thick with unspoken history. Leah and Daniel arrived late, carrying a dish of roasted vegetables. She looked nervous, glancing at me like she was waiting for permission to exist. I nodded politely. It wasn't warmth yet, but it wasn't rejection either. During dinner, conversation flowed unevenly. People tiptoed around the topic, like it was a sleeping lion. But eventually Leah spoke. "I know we're all tired of hearing about it," she said, voice trembling. "But I just want to thank everyone for still inviting me here, especially you," she looked at me, "for allowing me a seat at this table." Mom dabbed her eyes. Daniel reached for her hand. I took a sip of wine and said quietly, "Everyone makes mistakes, Leah. It's what we do after them that matters." Her eyes softened, and for the first time, I saw something real. Humility, not shame. That night, as I left, she hugged me gently. Not the staged, photo-perfect embrace from before, but a small, hesitant one, full of truth. "Thank you," she whispered. I nodded. "Just keep being better." By spring, the scandal had faded into memory. People stopped whispering. Family gatherings returned to laughter and normal chatter. But something in me had changed permanently. I had learned that silence can be its own kind of strength. That dignity speaks louder than revenge ever could. The woman who walked away from that wedding wasn't the same one who'd planned it. She was steadier, wiser, whole again. It's strange how time reshapes pain. At first, it sits inside you like a stone. Heavy, sharp, unmovable. But then, slowly, it wears down, softens around the edges. Eventually, it becomes something else entirely. Not gone, but no longer unbearable. That's what happened to me. Months after the wedding, life began to find its rhythm again. I started volunteering at a local community center. Something I'd always wanted to do, but never made time for. It was a place filled with women who, like me, had been bruised by life in quiet, invisible ways. Through betrayal, disappointment, and loss. We shared stories over coffee and laughter. Real laughter. The kind that starts deep and spills out before you can stop it. One afternoon, while setting up chairs for a workshop, one of the women said to me, "You always seem so calm, like nothing gets to you." I smiled. "Oh, things get to me. I just learned how to let them pass through instead of staying inside." She nodded, like she understood. That was the first time I realized. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering, without breaking. A few months later, Daniel and Leah announced they were expecting a baby. When Mom told me over the phone, I paused, unsure of how to feel. The wound had long closed, but this news pressed gently against the scar. I took a deep breath. "That's good news," I said finally. "I'm happy for them." And I was. Genuinely. Life moves forward, and love, even imperfect love, deserves to grow. When Leah reached out to tell me herself, her message was simple. "I don't deserve your kindness, but I hope one day our child will know you." The aunt who taught their mother what grace looks like. It brought tears to my eyes, not because it erased the past, but because it proved she'd learned something from it. The day the baby was born, Daniel sent a photo, a tiny girl wrapped in a soft pink blanket. He'd written one word beneath it, hope. I stared at that word for a long time. Hope. That's what had been missing all along. During the betrayal, the isolation, the long nights wondering how people I loved could hurt me so deeply. But here it was again, swaddled in cotton, tiny fingers curled around a new beginning. Weeks later, I went to meet her. I knocked on their door, heart fluttering. When Leah opened it, she smiled nervously, holding the baby close. "Come in," she said quietly. The house smelled of lavender and baby powder. The air was warm, thick with soft sounds. The rustle of blankets, the faint cooing of a newborn. When Leah handed her to me, I felt something shift again, a kind of peace I hadn't known I needed. Her skin was impossibly soft, her tiny face scrunched as she yawned. "She's perfect," I whispered. Leah's voice trembled. "We named her May." I looked up, surprised. "May," she nodded, "after the month when everything went wrong, and somehow started to go right again." My throat tightened. I smiled, tears pricking my eyes. "That's beautiful." She reached out and touched my hand. "You taught me that forgiveness isn't a gift for others. It's a gift for yourself." I'll never forget that. As I left their house that evening, the sky was painted in pink and gold, the kind of sky that feels like a promise. I realized I didn't carry anger anymore, just memory, softened by time. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, it redefines it. And maybe that's the truest kind of healing. Learning to live with the parts of your story that didn't go the way you planned, without letting them define who you become. A year later, I was at another wedding, this time for a close friend. As the ceremony began, the music swelled and everyone rose to their feet. The sight of the bride walking down the aisle hit me with unexpected emotion. Not sadness, just recognition. I remembered that day, my nephew's wedding, the sting of being replaced, the laughter I wasn't part of. But now, sitting there surrounded by friends, I realized something. Life had given me a different kind of role, one I hadn't chosen but had grown into, the role of someone who had been broken and rebuilt, quieter but stronger. As the vows were spoken, I smiled, whispering a silent promise of my own. Never again would I let someone else decide my worth. That night, as I drove home, I passed the old family hall where it had all happened. The lights were off, the sign faded. For a moment, I thought about stopping, but I didn't need to. Some chapters don't need revisiting. They just need closing. I rolled down the window, letting the cool air brush my face. Somewhere between heartbreak and healing, I'd found peace. Not the kind that forgets, but the kind that understands. Later that week, I recorded a message for the women at the community center. It was something they'd been asking for. A talk on forgiveness. When the camera light blinked red, I took a deep breath and said, "There's a special kind of pain that comes from being replaced. By a friend, by family, by someone you trusted. It cuts deep because it tells you that you are disposable. But I've learned something. You are never disposable in your own story. The only person who can replace you is you. When you decide to become stronger than what broke you." I paused, smiling gently. Sometimes, people betray us not because we're unworthy, but because they are afraid of how brightly we shine. Forgive them, not for their sake, but for yours. Because peace feels better than revenge ever could. That video ended up being shared widely. Among women, mothers, daughters, comments flooded in. This was my story. I needed this today. Thank you for reminding me it's okay to let go. For the first time, I realized the story I thought was meant to break me had become something else entirely. A bridge for others, and that's where I am now. Still me, still here, still learning that family can wound and heal in equal measure. I don't know what the future holds for Leah and me. Maybe we'll never be as close as before. Maybe we will. But either way, I'm at peace with it, because sometimes healing doesn't mean things go back to how they were. It means you move forward, softer, wiser, and unshakably whole. When I look back now, I don't think about the wedding, or the whispers, or even the silence that followed. I think about the quiet moments. Standing by that window the day I found out, feeling my heart break and heal in the same breath. I think about how easy it would have been to turn bitter, and how hard it was to choose peace instead. You see, Family can be both your greatest comfort and your deepest wound. The same people who lift you up can also leave you standing in the shadows. But healing, real healing, begins when you stop waiting for an apology that may never come and start giving yourself the closure you deserve. Leah's betrayal taught me something I never would have learned otherwise. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means refusing to let it keep happening. Inside your heart, every single day, there's a quiet kind of strength in walking away with grace, in holding your dignity when someone tries to take it from you. And maybe that's the lesson I want to leave with you tonight. If someone has replaced you, if you've ever been excluded from a moment that should have been yours, remember this: you don't need a title, a seat at the table, or anyone's approval to know your worth. Your value doesn't disappear just because someone else tried to erase it. Sometimes, being left out is the universe's way of making room for something truer, kinder, something that belongs only to you. So, tell me, if it were you standing in my shoes that day, watching your place taken, your name forgotten, would you have walked away quietly like I did? Or would you have fought to be seen? Let me know in the comments, my dears. And if this story touched your heart tonight, don't forget to subscribe for more, because somewhere out there, another woman is learning to forgive herself for trusting too deeply. And maybe, just maybe, she needs to hear that she's not alone.